can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. So, good morning, everybody. I don't typically sit down here, and actually I don't ever sit down here and talk about how cool this place is, and I don't mean temperature. It was funny, I was pulling up this morning, and I was driving, I guess this way along campus, and I saw this whole crowd of people walking this way on campus. And they were still kind of far away, and I was like, that's a lot of people. What's going on? And as I got closer and they were slowly walking, I was like, oh, those are all the people here for Day of Silence. There were like 40 people out there. And I was like, I kind of used in my head, I say a lot with the college group, if you can get 40 college kids to Metaforest Monastery, which is north of Escondido, at 8 in the morning on a Saturday, that's like a miracle. So this isn't quite as big of a miracle, but I still think it's really cool that we got 40 people here on Saturday morning who chose to spend 4 hours sitting in absolute silence. So the crowd of people that you might have seen kind of lingering still in the doorway, they just finished the cleaning period of the retreat and then finished the last hour downstairs. But it's like, wow, we have kind of a neat place here. And, you know, I think for me, I'm so busy in it all the time that I really just don't, rarely ever stop and think, wow, what a cool thing we're doing here. Because there's always just something else to do. So if I spend too much time thinking about how cool something was, I stopped doing things. But for that brief moment, it was really cool. So I kind of just wanted to share it. And for those of you who've never done the Day of Silence, I highly recommend it. They all look like they were surviving, right? See, proof, right? Most of them survived the 4 hours. It's just 4 hours of silence. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, you start up here for basically 3 hours. There's about a 20 to 25 minute meditation period, and that repeats. There's a walking meditation period, and that's what I saw coming back. And then there's a cleaning meditation period, and then it finishes when we come in here at 11. They move downstairs about 10:40, and they finish down there. It's also a really cool thing. If anybody has done it or is interested in leading it, we're always looking now, I think probably about 3 or 4 more volunteers that want to maybe help lead the half day of silence. It's really difficult. Let me show you what you have to be able to do. That's it. So you have all now been flat. Travis, we said we're going to train anyone who's interested. Travis will take 30 minutes to train you. And we realized 30 minutes was kind of a, overshoot, it really takes about 3 minutes. But you just have to hit this bell once every 25 minutes and stay awake. So anyways, if you're ever interested in doing, or if you've done and you want to help leading the Day of Silence, whether it's as the leader or what's called the shoji, that requires maybe like 5 minutes of training, so that one's a little more difficult. You just have to direct people, and there's some things you read for the cleaning period. But it's a beautiful practice, and it's also a really nice thing to lead something like that, or to be a part of leading something like that. It's really a different experience than maybe if you're just used to coming and sitting there and looking this way. So, yeah. All right. So thanks all for being here. That was on my mind, so I figured I'd share it. We'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. You're not going to figure anything out whatsoever. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. You won't think nothing. Often people think meditation is about thinking nothing or going blank. You end up sitting there telling yourself, think nothing, think nothing, think nothing, and you might as well get up and go do something. Don't judge your practice. You need to ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. Okay. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside the room. This is life. Life is filled with sounds and chaos. So this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of that. But posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands are on the knees or in the lap. If you get up during meditation to go to the restroom, please put your shoes on. That's the most important piece of the meditation training. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. simply continue this practice. Observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. There's your mind. Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. with the body still, resting, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. The mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. The most important, the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. And ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day, for the rest of your life. And realize whatever you feel now is quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind. Whatever you're sitting with at this moment has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit on the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than anyone in this room, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us in this room, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in, where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every day. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Plus, the way you feel now is quite different from how you feel throughout the rest of your days. And so all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. Meditation is not an escape as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic mess, meditation doesn't fix that. If anything, it just makes you become aware of a life that is a crazy, hectic mess. And then you begin to figure out what changes you can make in your life so things outside of here are a little bit simpler, a little bit calmer, a little bit easier. But sometimes it requires sitting still and getting quiet and doing nothing. And just being present with what's happening around you. To be able to hear all the sounds is important. To notice if they bother you or not is important. To be able to experience the temperature, the heat, or whatever it might be is important. To notice whether it bothers you or not, also important. So this isn't a matter of isolating everything out and creating a perfect environment for meditation or your lives. It's learning to be comfortable, calm, and at peace in everything as it occurs. Because if you haven't figured it out by now, your entire life is not going to work out exactly how you thought it would. In many cases, not even remotely close. I mean, I'm sitting here, so it goes to show you, life definitely doesn't work out how you thought it would someday, right? But the practice is to be open and willing to engage and embrace everything as it occurs. And then as these moments in our lives occur, become aware of what we think and what we say and what we do in each of those moments. You know, the Buddha taught for 45 years. He roamed the base of the Himalayan mountains from the age of 35 until 80 teaching. And so for 45 years, you can imagine a pretty smart person said a lot of stuff, right? But to me, when you kind of look at it in a very simple manner, everything he taught comes down to being aware of what you think and what you say and what you do. That's it. And it's no more complicated than that, but it's also extremely difficult. All of our thoughts, all of our words, all of our actions create the world that we're in. And to take some time and stop trying to fix everything around you, but become aware of how you are in everything around you, that's the heart of this practice. And one of the paramitas is perfection. In the practice, it doesn't mean to be perfect, but these are practices that we work on that take us from a life of struggle, chaos, whatever it might be. And as they say in Buddhism, go from one side, samsara, to nirvana, one side of the shore to the other. And so these 6 perfections, 6 paramitas, are generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom. Generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom. This was the first teaching my teacher taught me, and to me it's still the heart of the practice. And so I just want to touch on briefly the idea of patience, which is extremely beneficial as you go on a journey, spiritual journey, meditative journey, religious journey, whatever this journey is for you. Be patient with it. How many of you here lack patience in your lives? In case you weren't looking around, I saw every single hand up. Right? The second one is morality, which means don't lie. So if you didn't have your hand up, then you might want to refer to the second parmita of morality, which is honesty, right? Now, I'm sure some of you, and true, some of us are really good at practicing patience. Some of us are really terrible at it, right? For me, it's something I had to learn. I had no patience, and I've learned the patience. Lead a Buddhist temple for 13 years. It'll definitely teach you to practice patience, right? But find ways in your life that you can practice patience. Be patient with yourself first and foremost, because if you've been an angry, mean, stressed out, depressed, sad person, or whatever it might be your whole life, it's going to take a few more than 6 weeks to get through that, right? So give yourself time. Try not to judge or critique progress within Buddhism. Oh, is this working or is this not working? Try not to look at it that way. Just think, can I be patient today with myself, those around me? That's the practice. Often it's easier to be patient with others and harder towards ourselves. But again, everyone in this room is different. So explore, where do you lack patience? And if you find yourself having difficulty being patient, as I said earlier, put yourself in situations that require patience. And you can all come up with crazy examples, but one of the ones I use frequently over the years is, think of a family member, most of us have them, that maybe frustrates you, okay? Or a friend that frustrates you, but someone that's in your life, and someone that's very difficult for you to talk with or be on the phone with. Yet it's also very important that you do these things. So find the person that you can't stand talking to, but you have to, and get on the phone with them for 5 minutes. And after 3 minutes, when you're ready to absolutely hang up and jump out a window and, abort mission, spend 5 more minutes on the phone with them, right? The only way to practice patience is to not avoid things, but to put yourself in a situation where patience is required. Next time you go to the grocery store, does anyone in here think of when you're at the grocery store, when you go to the checkout line, does anyone think, I'm going to find the longest line and go to that one? No, we think, okay, which line is the shortest? For me, that never worked, because no matter what line I pick, it still takes the longest. I've spent years, there could be 2 people in front of me. I get in that line. This line has 12. Next thing you know, they're all gone, and I'm still in this line. So whoever's planned to force patience into my life is, it's been a pretty heavy plan. But go to the grocery store, find the line that's long, and stand in that one. I just see how uncomfortable y'all are. Because then the logic is why would I do that? That's stupid. Why would I stand in line? And the answer is because you need to learn patience. It's that simple. Often we come into meditation and Buddhist practice and we just want to feel better. And we want to feel good. And we want Buddhism or meditation to be the thing that's going to help us. Well, the only thing that's going to help you is by putting yourself in situations where you're forced to practice these types of things. Because all day long, it's not even noon yet. Do you know how many things today are going to happen that are going to require you to be patient? So coming here or anywhere, week after week after week, listening to somebody talk about patience isn't going to do it. You must practice it. Otherwise, it becomes this concept and this foreign thing that other people are really good at and you're really bad at, potentially. Just to be fair, a show of hands of everyone here who's really good at patience. I'll ask again. Show of hands of anybody in here that's really good at patience. I just want to make sure y'all heard the question. I saw a half a hand. Thank you. So you have patience. You're pretty good at that. Yeah.
Except with the really, really difficult people in my life.
Except with the difficult people in your life. I appreciate the honesty. Oh, the really so just the really difficult people. Just the average difficult people, those you're okay with. Yes. And are those really difficult people in your life, for the most part, probably always going to be in your life, at least for an extended period of time, hopefully?
Yeah.
Yes. They're not going anywhere, hopefully, anytime soon. So they are the people that this is where it's going to be most challenging for you. But that's why I wanted to be fair, because I actually expected a few more hands. But there are people that are really good at being patient. Jim, yeah.
I was going to say, I've been in public patience.
Public patience.
People think I'm patient, but they don't see me when I'm alone.
So meaning just in public.
In public, I'm really good at it, but by myself, terrible.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
I don't know either. That's stuff maybe you help us out. Can anyone else relate to that? Really good at being patient in public, but with your
People might think of you.
right. So we're patient with them because we want to make sure they like us.
Possibly.
Does that mean we don't care if we like ourselves, so we lack patience? I don't know. That's an interesting way to look at it. It's true. We're often more patient with others because we don't want to offend or upset or hurt or yeah. What else? Any have an insight? Yeah, in the back.
I think for me, sometimes it's like emotional patience is harder. Like the feeling is that I want to get through something that does not feel comfortable for me
Right.
on an emotional or relationship level. And so I'm very impatient. I want to just get through that.
For sure.
Whereas just sitting, I've had to learn, just sitting like say in a line or in a doctor's office where you see everything going on and you're irritated that your appointment's at 10 and you're there not seeing you at 11,
Right.
until 11, but it's just, that is far easier to be just relaxed, but the stuff that is, internally uncomfortable about an interaction, I want to just get through that.
Yeah, definitely. Makes sense. Yeah. Go ahead and
Me,
Tom.
I like to respect other people, so I feel like in long life, I'm okay to stay here and then just like maybe other people doing things first. I feel okay with that.
Right.
But with my husband, I'm really like not patient with him. So like I try. Sometimes I'm like, okay,
Yes.
I try. So I'm like, I don't know why only one person that I'm not patient with is
Yeah.
my husband. But with my friends, coworker, everybody, I'm like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. I'm like, let's go. If you wanna go, like the right driving. If you wanna cut me out, okay, let's go. I'm fine.
Right.
Not with my husband.
Right. And I know your husband, and he's usually here. We won't tell him. He might be watching the YouTube thing. So hopefully you're not on film. He doesn't know. Yes. Yes. It is often that's the case, though. The self or loved ones, sometimes we also lack the patience, and then almost easier to strangers. These are all just interesting things to explore. No answers. Yeah, Tom.
Over the years, I spent a bunch of time in AA meetings, and I remember a prayer there, a short prayer. Dear Lord, please give me patience right now.
Yeah. Is that the end of the prayer?
That's it.
That's it. That's great. Dear Lord, please give me patience right now. Yeah.
I generally think that I thought that I was patient with myself, but then as we were practicing this morning, I was having a really hard time for some reason today, and then the thought popped into my head, like, I am a bad meditator. And I'm like, really? Thank you. Thank you for that help, brain. That's very helpful. And I was amused by that, but I'm like, okay, I guess as we're talking about this, I'm like, I guess I'm patient with myself in some ways, but not, like, I've been meditating for years. I'm like, why can't I just get this down, So I think spiritually, I'm frustrated.
Lack of patience there. That brings up another interesting point. Anyone in here often find themselves critiquing their meditation practice and think you're doing it bad or wrong, right? Have you ignored my opening lines for the last 10 years, right? So the idea is that, yes, with that, it is something, and that's why I say, don't judge your practice. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to float. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. Because for our entire lives, we are, for the most part, conditioned to achieve, gain, succeed, do better, right? I mean, nobody told you to stay in second grade forever, right? They said, no, do well in school so you can go on to third grade, right? Our entire lives is a series of accomplishments, progressions. Often we're graded and tested on them, and we have to achieve to go to what's next. And then all of a sudden we come into this meditation, spiritual, Buddhist practice, and the idea is that there is no next. There's only this moment repeating over and over and over again. So our entire lives, we have been conditioned to do everything I just said, and yet this practice is the opposite of that. It is just sitting. It is just breathing. You can't be better at that, right? You can't breathe better. You're just breathing, right? You can't sit better. You're just sitting. And the mind that races is always going to race. So as soon as you recognize just sitting, just breathing, and a racing mind, and continue the effort to bring the mind back to the present moment, that's the ongoing daily practice with meditation of bringing the mind back to the present moment. And there are some days the mind is going to race more than others. But because the mind is racing more than others doesn't equate to us being a bad meditator. It actually has nothing to do with our meditation practice. It has to do with the fact that maybe that day or that moment or that morning was more hectic or busier than normal. So our mind is racing more than normal. But somehow we draw this direct line that says, if my mind is racing, clearly I'm a bad meditator. You know, that's a common thing. Yeah, you were gonna get.
Well, it's interesting you were saying that because today I've been thinking, you said to focus on the breath, and all of a sudden I was saying, how am I supposed to breathe? Am I supposed to focus on the belly breath,
Sure.
the chest breath, the in, the out, and then is this the same as mindfulness meditation? I was doing all that and kind of trying to stay in the breath,
Yeah.
not so much in the present moment, but in the present moment of the breath.
But here's the beauty of all of that. You know what you weren't thinking about? All the crap that's going on in your life. I mean, I didn't mean to assume there's crap going on in your life, but it's usually a pretty safe assumption with human beings, right? So that you were not focused on.
Right.
Now, let me address it's one, welcome to America, Western culture. It's one of the, mindfulness. The word mindfulness has absolutely, ruined meditation in Buddhism for so many people. And at the same time, it's the most beautiful thing because it's getting people to meditate, right? I'm going to touch on this kind of briefly, even though this is like a 6-month discourse. The Buddhist teachings on mindfulness is very important, right? Karma Lekshi Somu taught here last night, Tibetan Buddhist nun for 40 plus years, professor at USD. One of the best things I ever heard anyone say, she was giving a talk at USD, and she said, and they have a Center for Mindfulness, right? So she said, you could mindfully, she doesn't like the mindfulness movement. She's a Buddhist nun. She says, you could mindfully, do you know Lekshi? Okay. She said, you could mindfully rob a bank. You could mindfully murder someone. Mindfulness without moral, ethical behavior doesn't get you so far. But what our Western culture has done is we are afraid of this word, meditation. So John Kabat-Zinn, who's a genius, created MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. And his work has millions of people all over the world practicing mindfulness, right? Phenomenal. Mindfulness is just another word that makes us feel okay with doing a meditation practice. So to say, am I breathing? Am I practicing mindfulness? That's just like these words that you just experience. Mass confusion. How am I breathing? Am I breathing in through the right nostril? Am I breathing out through my ear? Am I practicing meditation? Am I practicing mindfulness? Am I being Buddhist? Am I going to float just breathe? Right? Try not to get wrapped up in this mindfulness word the way it's thrown out into our culture. Almost every day you say to somebody, do you practice meditation or Buddhist practice? They're like, no, but I practice mindfulness. Great. I don't care. These are all just my personal views, as is everything, but I don't care what people call it. But I often want to whisper to people and say, all mindfulness is the Buddhist teachings that's put in a pretty little package with a bunch of names stripped out of it to make all of us Western folks comfortable with it. Shh, don't tell anyone. Or people will abandon practicing mindfulness, So that's not just for you, but for everybody else who might wonder, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is an awareness of what's happening in the present moment. Meditation is a concentration and focus on that present moment while you're mindfully aware. And if you're a mindfulness teacher in this room, I apologize because you probably hate what I just said. Yeah,
No, you just said what I was going to say is that.
you hate what I just said?
I was just going to say that I feel like the semantics of mindfulness maybe have changed.
Yes.
Because I don't think of it as a meditation term. I think of it as doing something with awareness and focus, which ties into meditation because it's in the moment. But
Yes.
definitely you can murder somebody mindfully. But when I use it, which I say mindful a lot, it's just to think about what you're doing, think about what that means to other people.
Yes.
So I just think the semantics are different.
Absolutely, and that's probably even a better way to say what I was saying is that the mindfulness, as I was alluding to, is so important to be mindful and aware of everything we're doing. But yes, our culture has replaced the word meditation with mindfulness just to make people feel comfortable with it. Mindful meditation when eating, when, the Buddha taught when walking, when sitting, when lying down, all of these things are a practice of concentration, of mindfulness, of focus. Absolutely. Other questions, thoughts, comments, meditation, Buddhist practice? Yeah?
Can I ask you not about pictures?
Please. Yes, thank you.
I'm just wondering what the Buddha said or might have said about people.
About evil? Let me preface this, and I respond to this same thing always. For you or anybody who might be new to Buddhist practice, anytime someone asks a question of what did the Buddha say about, it's always important to understand that he taught for 45 years. Everything was memorized by the monks and nuns. And a couple hundred years later, after the oral transmission of the Buddhist teachings, they came together and at a council and said something to the effect of, this is some good stuff, we should probably write it down. So they wrote it on palm leaves, right? It all got transcribed. Most of the sutras start out with the phrase, thus have I heard, at such and such time, at such and such place, the Buddha once said. So everybody is basically recounting and retelling what they think the Buddha said. So the only way to absolutely 100% know what did the Buddha say about something would you have been there and listened to him and asked him. And chances are that probably didn't happen.
That's why I'm saying what he might have said.
Right, I know, I'm getting there. It's important, because if I just answer your question, then other people, anyone here, like brand new, day one, listening to Buddhist teachings, like never heard this before? Yeah, a couple of you. So if I just answered your question, then they think, oh, well, that's what the Buddha said about it. We don't necessarily know, right? The second thing to look at is, how are you defining evil?
Well, I feel like a lot of times we'll say good and evil, but I don't think those are opposites. I think good and bad are opposites because those things can be defined by behaviors.
Okay.
Where I feel like evil and maybe its opposite, holiness, are things that are not defined by behaviors.
Okay.
So therefore they can't be of dependent origination in their thinking.
Okay, so what I'm going to say is hopefully going to shatter your way of thinking. Because my understanding of the Buddhist teachings is that your way of thinking won't help you understand this. What I mean by that is, and thank you for that clarification because that helped me understand. The Buddha said that we are all awakened beings. We are all Buddhas to be. We all have what's called bodhicitta, Buddha nature, right? Every one of us. All of us, of course we're kind because we're at a Buddhist temple on a Saturday morning, so that guarantees our kindness, right? And we're going to be kind all day long. But everyone in the world, current, past, and future, has Buddha nature, right? Best way to look at bodhicitta, Buddha nature, is think about the sun on a cloudy day. Can you see the sun on a cloudy day? Why not? The clouds, right? And when the clouds part, what do you see? The sun. That sun is our Buddha nature. The clouds are what the Buddha taught is our greed, our anger, our ignorance. In Buddhist teachings, we call those the three poisons. That is the second noble truth, the cause of our suffering: greed, anger, ignorance, craving, desire, pride, ego, all of these things that are 100% a cause of dependent origination. The Buddha taught very clearly, this is why the way you said it, the Buddha said that everything is conditioned. All phenomena is conditioned. All thoughts, all words, all actions, which is our karma, is all conditioned. Good and bad, the Buddha said, are not words to focus on. There are actions we take. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant, some are neutral, and they all have an effect. So to say that someone, for example, is evil would not be a proper way of treating someone. We would say they are a fully enlightened being that is probably covered with a lot of clouds. And those clouds are caused by the way they were raised, their family, their friends, their culture, their surroundings, right? Everything they've been exposed to. These are all conditioned behaviors. We might not like them, right? So for us in this room, there's 70 of us here. I could probably throw out a question and say, how many of you think this is good? And I guarantee all of us would raise our hand. And then I would say, how many of you think this is bad? And all of us would raise our hand. And then there would be some things we'd be split right down the middle. Who's right? So the things that we think might be evil in the world, and yes, I would agree, there's a lot of disgusting things happening in the world. But to the people who are doing them, do they think it's evil? No, they don't. Maybe they just have a lot of clouds, a lot of greed, a lot of anger, a lot of ignorance, a lot of pride, a lot of ego, a lot of views coming from tremendous pain and suffering. And so that's what they continue to put out. I've worked with people who've murdered. I've worked with people who've raped. I've worked with people who've done some pretty horrific things in prisons for 16 years. They are Buddhas to be. They are fully enlightened beings that have just not become aware of their Buddha nature, because their conditions that they have been exposed to in their lives are not so pretty.
What about Mara?
What about Mara?
Well, wasn't she kind of evil or?
Mara's the mind.
Okay, I was gonna say she wasn't even.
So I'll wrap up with this thought. Mara, the story of the Buddha, you talk about the challenges that the Buddha was faced by Mara, right? These are metaphors. So when the Buddha was 21 days, he sat under the Bodhi tree and he said, I'm not moving until I figure out why I suffer, right? A lot of this is depicted in Buddhist iconography. And so he sits in meditation, 21 days. Mara, again, in the story, is like a person, but it's really the mind. Mara begins to rain hail, thunderstorm down on him. Tons of hail, thunderstorm, right? We'd maybe get an umbrella. Right? We'd try to find shelter. We'd look for something to get out of the thunderstorm. The Buddha just sat there. A king cobra came up, a naga, right? What would you all do if a king cobra came up to you? I think running's probably the worst thing, but we still probably would run, right? And he just sat. The king cobra came up underneath him, gave him a seat, coiled above him with Naga's 7 heads, and covered him and sheltered him. So what he sat with, which was fear, eventually changed into protection. Mara got even more upset. Then Mara begins to shoot arrows at the Buddha. The Buddha continues to sit, puts his hand up. The arrows turn into lotus petals and fall to the ground. Mara's still frustrated. So Mara says, all right, I'm going to get him with great lust, and begins to dance Mara's beautiful daughters in front of the Buddha. And the Buddha just not even moved, not fazed at all. The beautiful daughters turn into stone. The last thing Mara says is, nobody can defeat me. Who bears witness to you defeating me? And he didn't jump up and celebrate and be like, ha ha, I beat you. He just sat there and he touched the earth to show that the earth was his witness. The earth trembled and shook as it's told, right? And Mara was defeated. And in that moment, that was the Buddha's awakening. That was the last cloud. Now, the Buddha throughout his life had lots of challenges, right? And faced all of those things earlier in his life and didn't overcome them. But in that moment, through that journey, he defeated Mara. But Mara was It's all right here. So where does evil lie? The same place that beauty lies. Again, semantics, it's impossible for us to just avoid meanings and definitions of word that we have been taught our whole lives. Evil means something to us. Right? I've done things in my life at moments that were completely evil. I've done things in my life at moments that were completely whatever the opposite of what we would call evil. But that doesn't make me who I am. Just like the things you do don't make you who you are by definition. So when Mara arises in our mind, which it will settle, and see if Mara goes away. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Yeah, for sure. So through this practice, we share with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Tana in her time of suffering, and to Troy and their family who may suffer as well. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering.